and welcome to another edition of Broad Mind, where we explore the minds of writers, authors, and beyond. Today's special guest we have on is Dennis Schleicher, and he has a story all his own. It begins in 1989 at the age of 17, where he was the recipient of a brutal gay bashing in his high school. He was emancipated at one point from his parents, and luckily that did not last long. You have a good relationship with your parents now.
Yes, I do.
Very, very good. This was followed up with 7 appearances on nationally broadcast talk shows, including Larry King Live, Sally Jesse Raphael, Oprah Winfrey,
Jane Pratt, even Joan Rivers.
And this was to bring up your experiences and speak of tolerance. Dennis currently is strongly involved with marketing and healthcare. There's so many different facets of your life. Maybe you'd like to explain.
Yes. Well,
yourself.
It's interesting. You brought up the word tolerance, but back in 1989, when I was a victim of a brutal gay bashing, it wasn't something that anybody spoke about. Mm-hmm. So when I agreed to go on my first show, which was Sally Jesse Raphael, nobody had gone through that anymore. I mean, it was like I was a pioneer. Nobody was saying, wow, you know, like it was just unheard of. So it was something that I was 17 at that age, and I had did it. It was in a town just over the river. I was attacked in a public high school. And I felt that it was imperative to help others and mm-hmm. educate others, but it was at a time where we didn't have like all the national press or you know, the support from the government. There was no hate crimes bill passed. So it was just a very, I guess you could say, oppressed time for someone to go in front of 20 million viewers and say, this is why I was stabbed and attacked in my public high school.
Oof. My heart goes out to you, man.
Thank you, Tracy.
And you are an author
yes.
of Forbidden Love with a Married Man, Email Diaries.
Yes.
Now, it's kind of tough to talk about infidelity and things, but there are other issues I'd like to bring up, because Broad Mind is about teaching people about writing in particular. So there's no
yes.
offense in regards to the subject matter. But I would like to know, when did you start writing?
Well, I never really considered myself a public author until I wrote my diary. And that's an interesting story in itself. I found myself morally involved in a situation that I could not justify. I found myself dating somebody who was emotionally unavailable. Mm-hmm. And at the time when I started, I didn't know this person was married. And when I did, it was kind of like, it's too late. You're really deep into this, and you both have feelings for each other.
Yeah.
So it was something like, how am I going to justify this? So I ended up keeping a diary on my computer, and at night, when I was alone, I would write in that diary. Mm-hmm. And then one thing just led to another, and I started adding to it, and I started copying and pasting the emails that we had going back and forth with each other. Mm-hmm. And it showed a lot of emotion. It showed a lot of rawness. It showed a lot of, when I would read it, I would get choked up seeing the struggles he was having, the struggles I was having, mm-hmm. so on. And I started doing research, and I found that more than 3 million women in America are currently married to a spouse that's secretly living a double lifestyle, according to the 2000 census figures. So that's when I really started using my intellect and my mind and said, I gotta find out more. So I started researching a lot further and found that there was definitely a need for this.
Wow. I also want to bring up that I actually met you in 2006, I think probably around the time that you wrote your book.
Yes.
At Kappa University, which is Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association.
Yes.
And you were an absolute firecracker of a personality. You just stood up and told everybody what you were and what you were there for. And I got to connect with you
yes.
on another level and everything. And you actually told me something that even shocked me even more than just the subject matter of your book,
Yes.
and that is you have dyslexia.
Yes. Back in the 70s and early 80s, it wasn't labeled dyslexia. It was labeled as LD, or learning disabled. And one of the biggest challenges I had growing up in a school system was being segregated and being pulled into a different realm and told, you're different. You're not worthy of going to regular classes, so we need to put you in a separate, situation. So, the topic you brought up, Tracy, it's interesting because I would not admit to being dyslexic or learning disabled for many years until I became very successful in the business world, because I refused to allow people to have the hidden notion that he's not going to make it because of, or you're not going to be successful because of your disability. So to me, I never really referred to it as a disability. I thought that being dyslexic, it made me stronger.
Yeah.
It made me more of who I am. It made me a better public speaker. It made me really poignant to get up in front of a crowd and to get my point across. So it's almost like, when you're dealing with somebody who is hearing impaired, they can sometimes see, they have eyes behind their head.
Yeah.
Or somebody that's blind, they can hear things that you and I would normally hear because different perceptions take over. So being dyslexic, I had to be very creative and very, also doing modeling and doing commercials and soap operas at a young age. Reading the script, I had to, have somebody read it into a tape recorder and I had to memorize it. So I think it's added to my photographic memory. It's made me say, I can never forget these dates because so other things have gotten stronger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I was surprised to hear about the actor Henry Winkler, and that he actually has dyslexia,
Yes.
and he actually wrote several children's books.
Yes.
And it just always made me wonder, how does someone go through reading scripts for even TV shows? Because it's not. It's a huge.
Oftentimes, I worked with a soap opera star on The Guiding Light, and it was a Procter and Gamble production out of New York City, and when there was a character, Alan Spaulding, the very first one, he was dyslexic, and so he went through. So when I was auditioning for the part that I played, and when I was doing that, it was something that. They knew exactly how good Alan was, or, the character.
Yeah.
And so they knew all they had to do was just read it to us and we would memorize our parts and we would know it.
Wow. Has this actually hindered your writing ability in any way?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's actually, I think, made me stronger as a writer, because when there, as you know, being a part of CAPA, I'm the PR director for CAPA and the Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association in Connecticut, and it's our job when we submit book proposals to our literary editor, they submit questions and are basically constructive criticism. They give you, this is horrible, this is wrong, this needs to be deleted, this needs to be, and that's sometimes for people that are well-known authors. It's very hard for them to have entire chapters deleted and removed from their literary editor. For me, I was like, this is great, tell me more, because it was only making me a stronger author. It taught me about, how to be more grammatically correct with punctuations, with things that I didn't really pick up on as a child.
Wow. How are you able to conquer it?
Well, I use something back in, and this is actually an interesting story, the soap opera Guiding Light. They had somebody that was paralyzed, Vanessa, and she was paralyzed, and she was communicating with somebody. Oh, so you're a fan?
I remember
it's off
some
the
of
air
it.
now,
I remember
but
so
she could not move or type, so she had voice recognition software, Dragon, on her computer, and it allowed her to be able to do everything you and I do as right now as talking, but dictate it to her computer. And that was version 1. And I remember asking people in the computer business, because I wasn't computer savvy at that time, what is this voice recognition stuff? What is it? And a lot of people didn't know. And I dove into it, and that's what got me into computers, because I was scared of them until that day.
Wow. So we had a guest on previously, and she has cerebral palsy.
Yes.
She wrote 5 books in 5 years, and she had a certain kind of software, and she would actually type with just one finger.
Yeah.
And she's just incredibly intelligent and
I know
wonderful
her
books.
well. We worked at the Big E.
Shannon.
Yeah, Shannon. We worked selling books together at the Big E, and it was so amazing to see the tolerance of people helping her, or the patience that they had working with somebody like, and I love her to death.
Yeah,
She's a great author.
So remember, people, anybody can write.
Yes.
I'm curious to know, in regards to your book itself, why did you choose this particular subject versus like what you went through as a teenager? Do you feel that there wasn't as much information you could provide in a full 100, 150 pages?
Okay. Very, very good interviewer, Tracy. I'm impressed.
I try.
As a teenager back in the late 80s, early 90s, when it was time when I was approached to write a book about what I went through being a brutal victim of a horrific bashing in Connecticut. And with all my national press being on Oprah, Larry King, Sally, with them winning awards, daytime awards for my appearances on the show, and for them being, willing to put somebody on television at the age of 17 that is willingly to admit, yes, I was attacked because I was accused of being gay by 18 students. This was a traumatic situation. I thought, because of my disability, because of what I was taught in school, that I couldn't do it. And so I needed to have the encouragement and by the time I realized that there was voice recognition software that I could just talk to, just like talking to your iPhone or Siri, it was the topic was too late. It had already had its day. Yeah. Matthew Shepard was unfortunately killed in Wyoming.
Absolutely awful.
Horrible situation. There were hundreds of books already out there. So what I should have done or could have done at the time was hired or had a ghostwriter do it. But I didn't think about it. But in this book, my editor wanted me to talk about who's behind Forbidden Love with a married man. So I had to go back and regress and relive that horrific situation.
Yeah.
And it was probably the hardest first few chapters I had to write was going back and reliving that experience and those emotions of when I was speaking at the legislative building in Hartford about the hate crimes bill in Connecticut, because there wasn't any.
Yeah.
And saying we need to have this passed because, the kids that attacked me would have been arrested.
Yeah. Considering the subject matter and how graphic it is, I gotta say, but it's a absolutely fantastic book. How do you deal with writing something that you want to stay secret? Your subject matter is extremely of a personal nature.
Yes.
Yet you were able to complete your book with confidentiality. Did you ever for one moment feel it was wrong in revealing so much only without true identities?
Yes, that's a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I will start by answering the first one. I do not think I did a good job at hiding the identity of the person involved. It was very hard because it was my actual diary. Then I had to go through and change names. Everything's similar. My real estate agent, Barbara, is now Babs. Yeah. Everybody's so similar. And I had a state trooper actually come up to me at the Big E when I was autographing books at the Connecticut building, say, "Is this so-and-so?" And I went,
They know.
What do you mean? I was like a deer in a headlights. Here's a woman state trooper. She knew exactly who it was by reading the book. And that mortified me. It made me feel like I didn't do a good job at protecting his identity and other people in the book. As far as, having my life an open book, it's almost like when I was first contacted by Sally Jesse to go on, they wanted me to come on in disguise. I hung up the phone on them. I said, absolutely not. I am not doing this. It wasn't until I found out that there were people that in 1988, 33% of all suicides were committed over sexual identity crisis, and that 57% of the crimes that occurred in a public high school were over sexual identity issues, that I said, all right, I need to do this. I stood up. I said, okay, let's get this done. And so, again, when I saw the number of staggering statistics that women that are currently married to a spouse that's secretly living a double lifestyle, I had to become, I guess you could say I was catapulted as a spokesperson again 20 years later. So I needed, but the person that I had wrote about was fully aware of this and thought it was a great concept, to help other men in his shoes, were going through that. But I find that that's not my target audience. My target audience is more women that just like a good read, or they like a page turner. And, I either get a 5-star review on Amazon or a 1-star review on Amazon. So it's either a love-hate thing. And, I recommend all.
Yeah.
I think it's important. We learn from our 1-stars.
Yeah, yes, we do. I want to bring up like what you're saying. Well, I was saying about the staying secret and everything. Sometimes you just can't help how your emotions are, and other people know it, and it's just so thinly veiled, and you can't hide it.
Yes.
It's too obvious.
I've always been somebody that wants to help other people.
Yeah.
But if you've known me since 2006, and if you share a private secret with me, it's not going to go anywhere. So I don't want people to think that just because, I have to practice that HIPAA confidentiality thing when I counsel people, because I can't have everybody think that their life is going to end up in a bestseller.
Okay, I want to move on to your editing process. You have proven to write an autobiography or memoir, if you will. Is there any way in which you chose what to write, or did your editor pick the parts she felt were of the greatest importance to telling of the story?
A lot of it, was I provided the foundation, the roots, and then you can't build a house without a strong foundation. So, and I say that, then the plaster in the walls need to go up, and then you need to paint and go to Pottery Barn and start decorating. Well, with that's like an editor. An editor is going to put your shingles on the roof. He or she is going to basically give you direction. A lot of what's in the book was direction of my editor. Again, they had the foundation, but they needed to say that certain scenes were boring, or they needed some paprika in it, or they needed you to be more truthful, or so on and so forth, to relay the message.
Oh, well, that's something. Were there any frustrations during the process of writing the book? Like, could you simply contact your editor for all ideas and say, make sure you add this part or this part, like you just call her and say
yes.
that?
She would give me the drafts with all the red, editorial corrections. So I had a say to be able to approve or disapprove of what she was saying, yes.
How long did the process of writing your book take from the beginning to the printing in the format in which you had, just correspondence and everything?
It did not take long. It started at the beginning of January, and it was on the bookshelves in August, and it became a bestseller by November.
Wow. I want to also ask you, because nowadays that you can get printed and get your book done, you have done it through Author House, which is considered a vanity publishing.
Yes. Or now they're referring to it as partner publishing with literary agents. Yes.
Indie author.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm curious to know what is your opinion on how that's done now?
Well, it's a different world we live in. My book is going out of print, and so I've noticed the last couple of months that it's no longer available on iBooks, Nook, or Kindle because they're starting to pull it back. So, there are still new copies available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but, shortly it will not be available because it's going on its 10-year mark in 2016. So it's kind of, it's a process. And so, in 2006, when you met me at Kappa University, ebooks weren't even out there. The Kindle didn't come out until late 2006. So a lot of things are evolving, and as authors, we need to adapt to those needs.
Yeah. Did the I want to say the idea of being able to get your book out there with like the Vanity Publishing, did that play any part in you wanting to write a book in the first place?
Well,
it's so hard to
yes.
it's really to gatekeepers. And
I didn't understand the concept at the time of vanity and traditional, so I guess I went with what was going to get it out there quicker because of a timely issue, so that way it was important.
Yeah. Okay. Considering the subject matter of your book is, I guess, of LGBT nature, lesbian, gay, bi, trans.
Yes.
Do you market your book as romance or simply an autobiography memoir, or is it dual?
I market it as actually a memoir of romance, very 50 Shades of Grey, before 50 Shades of Grey came out.
That's rough.
Because but I market it to women, not really the LGBT community. It's funny, I find that my biggest audience are lesbian women. They love to read the book, and I don't know why, but they just love it. So, I don't segregate. Anybody that wants to talk about it, I will. Yeah. But it's not my biggest focus now. My focus is more helping others market, helping others make money through marketing, and so on, through different channels of marketing.
Okay. And will there be a follow-up to Forbidden Love with a Married Man?
That's the question everybody wants to know. The book is written. It's my literary agent wants it. I just need it to go to my literary editor and let her do her magic.
I'd like to know, and I'm wondering for our viewers also, do you have any information that people can contact you through?
Yes, Tracy.
Via the web?
If they need to reach me directly, they can find me on Facebook. My name is Dennis Schleicher. It's DennisSchleicher. Or you can send me an email directly at my first and last name, Dennis Schleicher, at me.com.
Well, we've run out of time, but I'd like to thank my guest, Dennis Schleicher. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Tracy, for having me on.
You're great. And I am T.L. Rotkiewicz. You've been watching Broad Mind. Until then.